I'd like to call this meeting to order, this regular City Council work session of Tuesday, April 17th. The clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Wolcott.
Here.
Vice Mayor Remley.
Here.
Councilmember Duffy.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Tandy.
Here.
Councilmember Hayden. Here. Councilmember Winters. Thank you.
And if you'll all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, is there anyone for call to the public, Sherry?
No, but there's a couple for item number 1.
All right, very good. So we'll start with item number 1.
Discussion as requested by Councilmember Hall, seconded by Councilmember Winters, pertaining to an update from the city staff and the landowner about the development components and the future plan for the city center.
Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. I'm pleased to be before you today to provide some background and information about our city center project. And I'm going to do a little bit of stage setting. In fact, if you can think about before, like the Rose Bowl game, they usually start off with a picture from the Goodyear blimp looking high above, sort of setting the stage. So I'm going to try to do that and then turn it over to our partners from Surprise Center Development Company to talk about the project more specifically and their future plans. So with that, I'll get started. And I want to start from the top. And what we're talking about, our Civic Center, is a square mile, and that is 640 acres. Now, a lot of that has already been developed. And just as a review, if you look up towards the top, number 1, that is about 23 acres, which is restaurant, medical, and office facilities that are built. Then if you look down sort of clockwise to maybe between about 330, going around there where there's a number 2, that is also medical projects that are built on 8 acres. And then tucked in the bullet, right on the sort of the southeast corner of the bullet, number 3, that is the county courthouse complex. That's built on about 9 acres. And then since I brought up the Rose Bowl, right now the granddaddy of them all on this project in terms of development is the city's Civic Center properties, which in total are 105 acres, and of which we are dedicating about 14 acres to Ottawa University. And then finally, actually through the I think very much goodwill of Surprise Center Development Company, we have, as you know, took possession of the 20 acres that you see on number 5, which will be future development of Ottawa University. And so after you take that from the total of 640 acres, I think the work that we all have before us over time, including right-of-way, is the development of about 475 acres. Now, what we have, staff has done is done some work on a number of items. Now, certainly we've done a lot of work to put in the ground what I just showed you, what I just reviewed. But if you now back up and look at the property as a whole, you can see the square mile. It's a little bit expanded out. So just to give you some reference points, you can see the baseball facility on the east side of Bullard. So you can, on the west side of Bullard, so you can see Bullard on the west or the left side of the picture. Up at the top, of course, is Bell. Going around clockwise is Litchfield, and then on the bottom is Greenway Road, which personally I'm very, very proud of, beautiful Greenway Road. Now, we've got staff working with SCDC has laid out some street facilities. Some of them are in the ground. They're not all, absolutely finalized, but I just want to go over them in general with you because some are larger than others and have sort of a different type of setup on the ground. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is what's in green, which you can see is Civic Center Drive, the newest road that we have, starting at Bell Road, coming down to Paradise. And that is a large road with a large median. Fully built out, will have 2 lanes each direction with bike paths, as well as some more vegetation and then sidewalks, okay? So next, taking back a look at this, we're going to look at what is in yellow, which right now there's not really a name, so we're just calling it the Boulevard. And it sounds like a nice name by itself, I think. You know? So the Boulevard runs from Bullard to Litchfield. It goes east-west, and that would look something like this, where we would have 1 lane of traffic each direction, a modest-sized median, then a bike lane, and then perpendicular parking. So that is seen to be a place where you could walk, drive, ride a bike to take advantage of the developments on either side of that, spanning that entire mile. Next, I want to show you the Elm Street, which is the part of this map up towards the top in purple. And Elm Street parallels the boulevard. It's about halfway from the boulevard to Bell Road. There's also some purple that's going north and south that right now would be set up the same way, but just focus on Elm Street for a second. It is also a mile long, goes from Bullard to Litchfield. And it would be set up a little bit differently. Again, a modest median, 1 lane of traffic each direction, bike lane, and then the parking would be parallel parking rather than perpendicular parking. And so this would be what you would see in a lot of maybe classic downtowns, where you could potentially see a parking meter or things like that. And then, of course, there's vegetation and then sidewalk. So next we're going to go to what I think most of us call the Bullet, but I'm going to talk specifically about the north side of this, which is Paradise Lane. And so this is, if the largest right-of-way was the Civic Center Drive, this is the next largest street at 110 feet. And it would look something like this, where we would have similarly 1 lane each direction, parking that is parallel to the travel. And then I want to finish off with the last, which will be Statler, which is also in the blue color, which goes from the top or the point of the Bullet all the way over to Litchfield. And I think all of us have driven on that road hundreds and hundreds of times, but it is not completely built out, as you know, until we have development. And it would be 2 lanes in each direction and a bike lane and sidewalk. Okay. All right, next I want to talk to you a little bit, very briefly, is that staff worked with some professionals as well as SCDC staff on a drainage study. And to set up these findings, I'm going to do them at a very, very high level. I want you to think about most of the city centers or downtowns that you've been in through most of your life. And so I grew up, and so downtown Phoenix was my downtown. And so just think about classically yours. In most cases, it's a bunch of tight blocks with a bunch of construction. But one of the things you don't see are retention basins or detention facilities. But here in Surprise, and in a lot of the West Valley, we must have, and you know from all of the sites that you're approving, you know, every council meeting, we need to take care of water. And we just cannot build completely densely without thoughts of where that water's going to go. So the drainage study that we had been working on for years had not been updated in a while. And so there have been some facilities that have been built since that study that really help us with water flow. One of them was the golf course in Sun Village. Another one is most recently the Bell Grand interchange has changed the flow of water. This drainage study that we've done and just sort of in high level has said that what we used to have right now, we're going to get like a 10% bump, meaning we can build, rather than have, let's say, 100% of these drainage facilities in the old plan, we need about 90%. So it's reduced the amount of retention and detention that we need. But I think it's important for all of us to know that we're going to have to look for creative solutions to deal with this need for retention and detention, but have the density that that we're looking for. Of course, I think probably a lot of us have talked about that water features are one way to be able to deal with that, but there are all kinds of other ways. But that is something for us to always keep in mind as we move forward. Now, I want to finally talk about another thing that staff has done and gotten a little bit of a start with in working with SCDC, is we have been working over about a year on a potential incentive agreement. It's something that will take some time for us to finalize, but an incentive agreement is a way for the city to work with the landowner to get the type of development that we would like to have. And so far, to give you an idea, some of the types of projects that we have communicated to them that are important to us, of course, is healthcare, hotel, either low-rise or mid-rise office, signature entertainment and signature retail, and then something that I think we always talk about, which is vertical mixed-use urban development, where you would have, so for instance, shops on the first floor, and then high-density residential going up. Now, as part of doing this, this draft that we're working with on an incentive agreement, we contracted with a firm to say, how much tax dollars could we generate on this particular property? And what the consultant did is work with city staff and SCDC to kind of lay out what are the possibilities. And with that, we identified the different types of projects, how many square feet there would be, whether it be retail, residential, commercial. And from that, over about a 14-year period, basically from about now all the way to 2030, the consultant identified how much tax revenue we would get each year. And what I did is I'm summarizing it to you by taking the total. So it would be small at the beginning and larger at the end, the total, and just say what's the average that the consultant came up with. And so there is a potential, and this is the total sales tax, of about $4 million of retail a year from this property, one and a quarter in restaurant, a little over $1 million in entertainment, while construction's going on, an average of about $1.5 million each year on construction sales tax, and then ongoing nearly $1 million a year in property taxes. And if you look at property taxes, it might seem small. One of the reasons is because I think you have done a great job in Surprise to make sure that we're lean with property taxes. So it looks dwarfed a little bit based on the other tax revenue, but that has the opportunity to fund a lot of services for us here in Surprise. And so with that, before I turn it over to the landowners, and I'll let you do the introductions, are there any questions for me before I step aside for a moment?
Any questions, members?
Okay. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to our business partners, SCDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Very pleased to be invited here today to have this discussion with you. This is a matter of tremendous importance to Sun Health. I'm Joe LaRue. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sun Health. And Sun Health is one of the 3 members of SCDC. As you know, SCDC, the Surprise Center Development Company, is the owner of the more than 470 acres of vacant land that Mr. Wiggenroth pointed out on his slide. I'm joined this afternoon by Bob McKee, to my left here. He represents Tall Wee Wee Ranches. Tall Wee Wee Ranches is also a member of SCDC. There's 3 members of SCDC. The third member is Airfield Capital Partners. Airfield Capital Partners is a collection of approximately 25 other investors. And those investors are led by Rick West. And I think Rick is here today as well. And so those are the members that make up the Surprise Center Development Company and therefore the owners of the land. Scott Phillips here is an employee of Rick West through Carefree Partners. Recently on April 5th, Mayor, you made a request, set a meeting to invite us to come and visit, and we couldn't have been more pleased to visit with you. And at that meeting, not all of the members were able to attend. Rick was not able to attend. He had some health issues, but Bob and I attended. So what we wanted to update the council here today, the rest of the council, is really that meeting and some of the commitments that we made to the city at that meeting. And so I would like to share that with you. Then I think Bob's got a few remarks. But before I go into those commitments, I want to set the stage for that April 5th meeting. And I'd also be remiss not to acknowledge the tremendous efforts and significant achievements that you all as the city have attained in the last few years here on this property. And those achievements really are setting the stage to say, let's get back together and collaborate and really work together on what this vision is going to be. I got to say, from Sun Health's perspective, Mayor and Council, your drive, your tenacity, your leadership to steward these accomplishments is absolutely amazing. And I truly hope, because I know Sun Health and its board members and its stakeholders appreciate your efforts, I really hope that the residents of Surprise appreciate all the efforts that you've gone through. And it's also very important when Sun Health, when I stand before them to ask for capital dollars to invest in communities, which we recently, and thank you, just recently broke ground on a $20 million investment there at the Colonnade in Surprise. The board is paying attention. What is that community doing? Are they looking out for their future? Is that a community that we want to continue to invest dollars in? And we are. We made that $20 million investment. So the 3 things I want to talk about that are high on my list is really that, and many people know it, it's the Bell Road, Bell Grand interchange. I mean, that was very significant. And I got to tell you that having worked with the Maricopa Association of Governments, I know that there were many cities around the valley eyeing those ADOT dollars. If there would have been any hesitation by this council to not move that forward, those dollars would be somewhere else in this valley. And there were many communities that were hoping that that would not go forward. So thank you. Thank you for making that a reality. Thank you for unclogging and starting the first step to unclog kind of the cul-de-sac that we have out here. So thank you. And I know there's a lot more to do in transportation. The other thing that I want to call out, and I witnessed personally, is the Mayor, your leadership, along with your councils, on creating that relationship with the city of Phoenix. The personal relationship with Mayor Stanton and those council members was phenomenal. And it's really by creating the relationship to build that trust and build that respect, and then go back and talk to them about how do we, control our future by coming up with a solution on these deed restrictions, was phenomenal. And it really, really is something that was absolutely needed. And Sun Health says, thank you for doing that. And that was a very big piece of the puzzle here. The third thing is Ottawa University. What a tremendous organization to bring to this campus. And I also got to say thank you for having the tenacity, having the persistence, but also having the patience to make sure you got the right university partner at the right time, under the right circumstances, because I think Ottawa is that partner. And so when you take those accomplishments and add those together, it really says we've got to get back and rethink and work together collaboratively for the future of Surprise. Because what we do here on these 470 acres that are left is going to outlast everybody in this room. It's going to be handed down for generations. So as Sun Health being a perpetual organization, we're really concerned about those future generations. Let me double back to the April 5th meeting. I appreciate the invite. Bob and I were there. I know it's been far too long that the members have come down to City Hall to say, let's engage in collaboration. And we know that that is something that is absolutely critical and crucial, for the future of this project and the future of the city of Surprise. And so while the third member wasn't able to attend, and so these commitments were really commitments made by Bob McGee and myself, I just want to cover them briefly. The first commitment was really Sun Health and Bob's group, basically commitment to collaborate with the city. We want your input. We want the input of the public. So as members of SCDC, we can take that back and make decisions in our partnership, because we've got a partnership that has to make decisions through the partnership agreement way, so that we can make decisions, but making those decisions not in a vacuum, but with your input and your stakeholders' input. The other thing we committed to at that meeting was to schedule regular meetings. Waiting 6 years to get back together again, far too long. And too many great things have happened that really means we've got to get back together in a room and talk. So we've committed to schedule regular meetings between the members of SCDC and the city and who you deem appropriate there. The third thing was really to make ourselves available, to make the members available to attend public forums, public meetings, wherever you believe it's beneficial, so that we talk about what's going on here. We're committed to find time in our schedule. And I know in the past, we didn't do that as much. We left it up to others. We're committing to make sure that it's our face that you see standing next to you, because I know that it's challenging when you're promising things, but the people that are delivering aren't standing next to you on those promises. So we'll do that. And finally, we're entertained the idea of soliciting a third party to assist in this master planning, and really to get at that stakeholder involvement, to get at that outreach process, to get at really understanding what these future opportunities are and how to bring those in together. And so we've committed to bring that one back to the partnership meeting. We've placed it on the next agenda, and we'll continue fulfilling. I got to tell you, Mayor, I thank you for that April 5th meeting invitation. It's far too long. As you can tell, Sun Health is very passionate about this downtown. This has been on our to-do list for a long time, and we want to make it happen. With that, I think Bob might have a few words, and then Scott probably has something to say.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, Mayor Walcott,
Could you want to bring the microphone
And-
down?
council members. I'm Bob McKee, and I had Tawiwi Ranches. I've been out in the West End for a long time. I bought it from the Bumsteads who founded it because of the water down there. And as Joe mentioned, Tawiwi is a member of Surprise Center Development Company. We became a member by trading our family ranch north of Luke Air Force Base for this property in Surprise. My son Tom and I are here representing Tawiwi today. My comments will be brief. As Will Rogers said, never miss an opportunity to shut up. Seriously, though, as Joe mentioned earlier, we are more than happy to answer your questions. I would like to echo the sentiments so well presented by Joe. As he mentioned, we had a tremendous meeting with the city earlier this month. I'd also like to mention that we are of the same mind as Sun Health in making ourselves available to the city. We are looking forward to collaborating with the city to include discussions for the visions for downtown Surprise. Again, thank you for inviting us to be with you here today. And again, we are looking forward to a successful collaboration with the city of Surprise.
Thank you. Scott?
Any questions?
I think we're going to wait until we can
Oh,
get the
okay.
third representative here.
Madam Mayor, council members, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Before I start, do you have any questions of me? None. Well, I guess I'll get started. The collaboration with the city has been going on for quite some time. I agree that more collaboration is always good, and we welcome the opportunity to sit with each and every one of you in a setting such as this and talk about the future of the downtown and the master plan. But I also appreciate Mr. Wingenroth and his fantastic presentation of the work that's been done over the last 18 months since the settlement of the lawsuit. We've worked quite hard to come up with those concepts, those streets, those land uses, the future opportunities that will greet us all. And I appreciate the fact that he spent so much time looking at those streets, because in my view, streets are the way that cities live. If we don't spend time on our streets and we don't understand how they work, our cities will be bad. And if you look at cities that have been around a long time and didn't plan for that appropriately, they're not fun to walk around. We want our city to be imminently walkable. So what I did is prepared a quick presentation about the continued collaboration and what we'd like to do and what we feel a master plan is and what we feel a master plan isn't. And again, supporting the manager of SCDC, I think it's important to indicate that not only have we been working on the master plan and working on this as a whole, we've also been working on bringing projects forward. Because at the end of the day, none of this makes any sense if we don't have projects, if we don't have new developments that take advantage and create new opportunities within the city of Surprise. And we have some of those, and I'd like to discuss those briefly today.
Mr. I don't know specifically what projects, but I'm guessing since you've already inkled what they might be in the news media, that it might not be to the benefit of the city for us to really discuss projects that are in the works. Certainly, we're here to discuss a master plan, but specific projects, we know that you're bringing forward projects. And typically, when a developer brings forward projects, they go to our economic development department and sit in that private room and work out the details. We don't typically negotiate projects from the dais.
Madam Mayor, that's not what I was suggesting. What I'm suggesting is the transition from a master plan to projects that get out of the ground. And after all, at the end of the day, aren't we here to see new projects and new opportunities, new retail, new experiences coming to the city?
Absolutely. And so if you would, Mr. Phillips, just refrain from being specific about projects. If you want to be general, 30,000 feet, the types of projects which would be consistent with some of the documents that Mr. Wigenroth talked about, the things that we would like to incentivize bringing here, that would be appropriate. But let's not get down into the specifics of projects, because we certainly don't want to put them at risk.
Madam Mayor, I wasn't planning on getting into specifics, but talking about generalities and land uses.
Thank
and
you.
Things that are on the horizon. So yes, you confirmed that, so I appreciate that. So when we look at a master plan, basically in our operating agreement, it defines a master plan, and that's the partnership agreement that we're all subject to. And it has different components. It's land uses, it's open space, it's common improvements, it's primary streets and utilities, and it's major infrastructure, and then properties to be conveyed for public use. Again, I think Mr. Wingenroth did a great job of identifying a number of those, specifically primary streets. We can look at what the land uses and open spaces are, which we've also done at great length. We certainly have looked at common improvements, and those include things like Ottawa University. So from our perspective, a master plan is a fairly succinct document that then lends itself to more specificity and future iterations as we go and do new developments and new projects and work directly with your very professional staff to come up with plans that meet the vision that frankly has already been expressed within the zoning document approved in 2001. So here's one draft. This is a fairly succinct master plan, but I know that it's been presented to this council on a couple different occasions. We actually went through a process with your city staff, so if it's been suggested we haven't been collaborating, we've been collaborating over a significant period of time to come up with a document that was presented to the city council. We don't know what the result of that was ultimately, because it was done in executive session, but our understanding, if there were other things to do outside of that, we would have heard. Now, we have subsequently heard that you wanted to have more public input and more process related to that. So I think that's a fantastic idea. And then the question is, what form does that take and how do we move forward? And I'd love to actually start that process tonight, because I know that most people, maybe perhaps not everybody, perhaps Mrs. Hayden has not had the opportunity to see this master plan and think about it as part of a long-term strategy. Here's another master plan that we did back in 2002. Really cool master plan. A lot of interesting stuff on there. A lot of open space, a lot of water, great trees. But again, it's cartoonish. It's not specific. All it shows is potential relationship between buildings, roadways, the things that I just talked about. These buildings don't mean anything other than they show potential land uses as part of different colors, and that's on a different sheet. But then we focus in on something like a site plan. So a site plan, this was the site plan we did with Glimcher Realty Trust. I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, we'd love to have Kierland Commons and Scottsdale Quarter in this city. Well, me too. And I'd love nothing better. And in fact, we brought the company that built Scottsdale Quarter to this city, and that's Glimcher Realty Trust. They were doing a 100-acre regional shopping center, walkable. You'll notice the tree-lined streets. You'll notice all the different components that people like in Kierland, the centralized open space, the variety of uses. And the really cool thing about this project is, as we look to the future, this is a very suburban model. But long-term, we said, look, we can recapture those parking areas in enough critical mass to go vertical and go urban long-term, but still keep the form of the walkable downtown and start that as a suburban project. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to realize that we are still a suburban market. And we are pushing and continue to push suburban to urban. Long-term, we'll be urban-suburban. And maybe in my lifetime, hopefully in my lifetime, we'll be urban-urban. But it takes a long time to get there. And it's taken the city of Phoenix 100 years to develop what they've developed down there. Here's another site plan. And this is a site plan that was developed in conjunction with brokers, with a retail developer, Thompson Thrift. And I appreciated your comments the other day, Mayor. I heard about them. I wasn't able to attend, about their ribbon cutting. We believe it's a really solid project up there with Starbucks and Tokyo Joe's and Cane's and soon to be open In-N-Out. Those are the sorts of interim or initial projects that start to create critical mass and grow opportunities in the city of Surprise. And I think the residents love them. Right now, those are some of the top performing units in the entire state of Arizona. So we want to make sure that we are providing things that people want and what people will use. So we put this plan together with our brokers, with Butler Design Group, who's developed a lot of tremendous retail in the city, in the entire state, and a retail developer. And we've shopped this to a great degree, trying to create interest. And you'll see, again, it has a central plaza, the central open space, the very walkable street, connectivity to everything surrounding it. And on the south side, we've been working on a multifamily development. Now, I will indicate one challenge, and this is where I bring up one of the projects we've initiated, is at the end of the day, there has to be a customer. And the customer that we thought we had said, that's a really nice plan, but that's not where we're going. We've got to go west. But we said, but don't you want to key off of Bell and Litchfield? And this is where the brokers say they want to go. And this is what we've worked with economic development planning with the city. And this makes a lot of sense. That's nice, but that's not where we want to go. So now we have to respond to the market. The market is telling us, you're wrong. I don't like to be wrong, but occasionally it happens. So we have to flip that whole plan over, or we have to flip something like it over. And we have to respond in short order so that we can move that project forward. And if we don't, it doesn't happen. So those are the sorts of things that we continuously work on and continuously try to collaborate with the different groups that pull these projects off. That when you go from a master plan which is what I showed before, down to a site plan, this is the level of detail we get to. Now, the master plan documents that we have, and I think, again, the street cross-sections are fantastic, and that it shows the level of detail on those streets, and it shows how those are going to work. And we have the architectural requirements in our PAD. So many of these details are already accounted for, but we're happy to figure out how to draw them differently and provide some additional narrative information that ties in really well to that incentive agreement, so that when the incentive agreement and other documents match up, it makes it really easy to work with the community and work through the incentive process to incentivize specific uses. So I also want to do a size comparison, because I hear a lot about, well, we want to be Kierland and we want to be Scottsdale Quarter, and it frustrates me a little bit because we're not Scottsdale and we don't want to be Scottsdale. People moved here, and I'm sure they had choices in life, and they said, we want to move to Surprise. So let's figure out what the Surprise version of that is. Let's figure out what the Surprise walkable gathering place is. But to give you a size comparison, the box on the left, which is outlined in orange, is about 32 acres. That's the size of Kierland Commons. The box on the right is the size of Scottsdale Quarter. That's about 23 acres, okay? We're not talking about the majority of this property. We're talking about a small section of this property. And the only reason I used the city property to make these illustrations is because people have a sense of how sizable that is. They go and they walk around the lake and they use that. So that's why I use that, so they can use a good comparison to see how large those projects really are. So going back, those projects are actually smaller than what we show up on this screen. They take up less acreage. Now, part of that is because they're dense, and they've grown to be dense, and it's taken about 15 years for them to become dense in the #1 employment area in the state and one of the wealthiest zip codes in the country. It's taken 15 years to do something like that. Not that we won't get there now, but it takes patience, it takes perseverance, it takes partnership, and it takes people. We have to have more people to do that type of density in close proximity. Not to say that we can't start it off with quality projects that could then grow organically as demand grows. So my vision that I've expressed to the chamber and at council meetings and private meetings with a lot of people, and again, we've been out talking about this property for a long time, and working with community groups and working in the community and meeting with council members and commission members. This is not a new experience for us. But if we can have 30,000 people working on the property, 15,000 people living on the property, 100,000 people enjoying the property every day, and 1 million people benefiting from the work that we have all collectively put into this project, that will be the home run. That's what we're shooting for. And it's very possible over time and with the right pieces in place. So I agree with all of those components. And then what are the guiding principles? It says gilding principles. We're not gilding anything here. We are guiding it. So I apologize for that. Doggone it. They are guiding principles. So walkability, living streets. I keep coming back to streets because when you walk in a special place, that's what you notice. It is those streets. I am passionate about streets. You can talk to staff. I love streets. I'm sorry, Mike Gent, I love streets. Total connectivity, walkability, all kinds of transportation. But we also have to be flexible. Self-driving cars. How do we do a central repository for cars? We may free up a tremendous amount of open space or area for new development because we can get rid of parking lots. I'm still going to drive my car. I would imagine a couple of you are too, but I know a lot of people are going to go for the self-driving car. Proximity, we wanted to create it, and this is what I mean, live near 3. We want to make sure at the outset, even in a suburban model, that every parcel on here lives close to 3 other uses. So if you live in the southeast quadrant, you're close to the university, you're close to medical, you're close to the city. If you live in the northeast quadrant, you're close to retail, you're close to the city, you're close to medical, and so on. So creating those linkages. I mean, every urban area has strong linkages, and only over time will those linkages grow closer and closer together. Long term, this is what we see, but we're not there yet. We'd like to be there. Those are the types of images that people think about when they think of cool places. When you look at that sidewalk, that's probably 18 feet wide. So maybe in some places we need to consider sidewalks that are 18 feet wide, that have double rows of trees. So that sort of feedback is invaluable. You know, where are we going to create those really wide promenades? And within the plans that we're working on right now and the projects that we're working on right now, there are components of each of these things that I think we need to put in there. But we also need to move those forward. Those are critical because a couple of them, if we lose them, they're gone forever. So I think that wraps up my canned comments. So I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Members of council, are there questions? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so we're clear, Scott, you represent the managing partner?
Correct. I'm in here in support of the managing member of SCDC.
Who's the managing partner?
Yes.
Well, let's be clear. Scott, you're saying you're authorized by the man to speak on behalf of the
I'm here in
managing partner?
support of the managing member of SCDC.
Okay, so that's a difference.
Yeah.
Councilman Hall.
Okay. But Rick West is the managing partner?
Correct.
Okay. And then I know we had a really expensive lawsuit.
Yep.
Okay, for both of us. And the settlement agreement was accomplished by a lot of effort by a lot of people. And I know Bob Wiggenroth was very involved, but I think Rick West was involved on the landowner side. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we came to a settlement agreement and it benefited both the city and benefited you. So, okay, that was part of the reason we got the Ottawa University 20 acres, right?
Correct.
That was part of the settlement.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But Councilmember, I hate to disrupt, but I also refresh the council's memory that I think this membership or member group, SCDC, proposed that property before the lawsuit and said, if you land a university, you're going to get some property. So, so there's no direct correlation that we settled a lawsuit and you got property. I mean, we've always committed to do what's right with
Yeah,
the
but
city.
it actually got done there.
Correct.
You can talk about it all you want, but it actually got done in the settlement agreement. That's my point.
Well, no, it got done when you landed a university. That should be your point.
Well, not necessarily, but that's okay. I'm not going to argue with you, Joe. Okay, the meeting that Joe talks about on April 5th with the city, that was the mayor and 2 council members.
Correct.
There were 3 planning and zoning commission members there.
That's correct.
Okay, so that wasn't the whole city council, wasn't the whole planning and zoning commission. There were staff there, right?
Correct.
So I just want to highlight that meeting because Joe made a really big point about it, that it didn't include the whole council and didn't include the whole planning and zoning commission. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So what's all the consternation about?
It's a good question. You know, sometimes it's hard to figure it out. We've been working on this property since 1995. This has been a point of tremendous opportunity for the city. Collaborating together, we've landed spring training. The Rangers and Royals was a very collaborative effort with Mr. Bill Pupo at the time and the mayor and council at the time. But they needed some additional help. So we were involved with that. We acquired all the land that spring training is currently on and assigned that contract to the city for the city's benefit. We've also been very involved in the community right down the street. We developed 2,000 acres called Surprise Farms and Arizona Traditions. 3 school sites, a high school site, 50-acre city site. You know, we've been a long-term community partner here. And even when things get challenging, because they always do, long-term partnerships create challenges, no matter what. So there's always trepidation. And there's always concern that people aren't looking out for each other. Because at the end of the day, if we're not working together, we're working against each other. And a divided house cannot stand. And so, you know, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the root cause of it is. I do know that it has created a lot of challenges for getting development out of the city and has hurt the reputation of the city, and it's unnecessary. I think going forward, if we can collaborate, if we can can create opportunities where we have win-wins, that would be good. I mean, Mattamy Homes was a challenge. Mattamy Homes was a great process, a very open process, 18 months of working with the city. And to have that go down was a challenge. I mean, that creates a challenge for getting new projects move forward, especially when a home builder goes through in good faith and creates a brand new plan and brand new product for the benefit of a community that they've worked hard to integrate into. So those sorts of things create division, but not that we can't overcome it, because we continuously overcome it as a group. But the lawsuit with the city trying to take the land and create an atmosphere where there wasn't good communication and trust, that doesn't go away in a second. And then to follow that up, it's getting other projects done and moving other things through, and certain elements within the city dividing certain elements on our side. Again, creating division is not good for anybody. So we should be moving projects forward that are beneficial to everybody together.
But it looks like the staff has been working hard on all this. I mean, we've got a drainage study, we got the street cross sections, et cetera. They hired an outside consultant to come in and talk about tax revenue, what it would mean at build out. They got input from you on that. So I'm just trying to figure out why, with all the work that's been done by our staff, why we aren't getting more projects out of the ground.
Councilman Hall,
that is a legitimate question, Councilmember Hall. That is a legitimate question.
It's an excellent question, and we have a number of projects that are on the drawing board that we've brought forward, and as Mr. LaRue said, we have to have them approved through our process. And we've had many projects teed up and not go forward for a variety of reasons. We've also had some challenges that have preceded the lawsuit, obviously with an economy, but post lawsuit. If Mattamy Homes were approved, they'd have $100 million in capital investment going on right now. Now that's okay. I mean, that will be replaced over some time. But those are the sorts of projects when you put that much time and effort. Thompson Thrift, a tremendous little project. Those guys, I think we were just up there walking around today, and I think many of you have made a lot of compliments to what Thompson Thrift is. It's a tremendous little project. But even getting that across the finish line and getting in and out across the finish line, those are battles every day. So until we can work together as a group, it's going to be a challenge.
Okay. There's a statute that talks about the rebate justification. Okay, so we as a city have to justify why we rebate. In the incentive agreement that Bob talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, during that, I just want to be clear in my mind, because this is information, this is a workshop. During that process, that development process, there will be other studies done to show that our rebates were justified, correct?
Councilman Hall, I think I can certainly speak to very limited knowledge of that, but my understanding of the statute is each project has to stand on its own. So we can do a framework study that indicates, we anticipate these revenues, but at the end of the day, that doesn't give it us halfway there. We have to come back with any new project, with any new conceived deal, and make sure it goes through that same process to assure, and I think there are several findings that you have to have in order to justify a rebate. But this is the start of that. This is not the finish of that.
Okay. Yeah, this study that was done was hired by us, by the city, to give us an idea of, at build out, 2030, I think they used as build out. Is that correct in that study, Bob? Yes. 2030. And I think the total tax revenue was about 147 million through build out. I mean, Bob used an average number, but that was based on your input of land use too, correct?
Well, and Councilman Hall, my recollection is that it wasn't strict build out through 2030, because we're not under any illusion that the thing is going to be built out in 2030. What we did is anticipated certain square footages of different uses that were going to be developed by that point. But yes, we worked with Judy Scalise at ESI to provide that information to the city.
It was a framework for
Correct.
a fiscal model.
That's the way I view it, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's all I got right now. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks a lot for your presentation, Scott. I appreciate all the work you've done.
Thank you.
And of course, the whole organization that you're involved with. We're stuck in a quagmire, and it just seems like the faster we swim, the sinker we get. When we can't even agree on a project for this, is it possible for all the players to get together in the executive meeting and you come for? I understand now you can't come forward with any particulars for confidentiality and things like that, but can we get together in an executive type meeting and discuss what's acceptable and what's not acceptable?
Councilmember Winters, I think that we've been advocates of a more open process. We're actually big fans of having discussions in front of council and in front of Planning and Zoning Commission. I think the key though is getting projects across our finish line and frankly getting them in front of our community development department to process those and ultimately get them into the front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council if required for approval. I mean, these new developments will not get done if we don't get them started. So I think the idea of going through a master plan process and collaborating, collaboration is good. That was the intent of the language in the settlement agreement. Now,
yeah.
our feeling was that the intent of that language is a little different than it's being interpreted now, but you roll with the punches. So we're rolling with the punches and believe that there is a need for collaboration, but there's also a need now that we have a strong economy, which might not be here 3 years from now, to move projects forward and to work closely with the city and our existing zoning and all the existing work that's been done to move these projects forward for decision and ultimately permitting and development.
Now, do we have some type of plan to look at it? I mean, what's it going to look like, the layout, what's going to be on it, et cetera?
Councilman Winters, yes, with every project, there is an obligation for a site plan at the very minimum. And that site plan specifies all of those details. It specifies what the parking looks like. It specifies what those streets look like. It specifies landscaping. It specifies architecture. All those details that people want to see with great specificity is outlined within a site plan. Within a preliminary plat, like Mattamy process, which goes to council, that same level of specificity is included. In fact, Mattamy went above and beyond and provided that architecture, which we would expect from now on for every project that moves forward, residential or otherwise, to provide that level of detail going forward to council. So yes, you will have that detail. Now, when we're talking master plan, my view is we have a pretty solid master plan. It has circulation, it has land uses, it has open space areas, it has drainage, and we can get specific when we start talking about those specific deals. But to the degree we want to develop something that's a little different and potentially a little more robust, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I just wish we'd get together and make some headway in this whole thing. It's just been dragging on for way too long. All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Remley.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Phillips, you're here on behalf of the general partner, right?
I'm here in support of the managing member of SCDC.
Okay, you're in support of the managing member. The managing member is present in the audience, correct?
Correct.
Would the managing member come forward? All of us seated here have been beating around the bush for years. You're tired of it. They're tired of it. And I think one of the commitments that was made was that there would be a master plan developed. So my question to you is, would you commit to collaborating with your other partners and with the city to develop such a master plan?
Councilman Remley, I've always been willing to collaborate. The form of that collaboration we need to define, but always been willing to collaborate with each and every one of you. And you know that, Ken. We've spent time together.
Yes, I do. But one of the commitments that was made at the most recent meeting was that a third party would be hired to develop a comprehensive master plan. And my question is, can we all work together to do that? Because doggone it, we're all getting tired of dancing around. We need to stop that. We need to move forward. Our city needs to move forward. And all of the investors that are involved all the way around need to move forward. We all want the same thing. Let's work together and do it.
Thank you, Councilmember. First of all, I want to say how much I appreciate that all three of the partners are in the room today. And I would like to see it happen a whole lot more often. As most of you do not know, the last time that all of us were in the room was in 2012. And in fact, at the meeting on the 5th, I actually shared this document, which was created by the managing partner for that discussion. It's called the City Design Collaboration. And this was a time that was invited by you, Mr. West, to sit down with me and with our planning staff and our city manager and our assistant city manager and our economic development folks, and both your other two partners were in the room. And I have to say, it was a great discussion. I think it went on for about a half a day at your request. And so much, I think, positive came out of that discussion. But somehow we kind of hit a roadblock, a snag. And I don't know what it was, but obviously both sides became frustrated. At the end of the day, it is 2018. And as I said in my State of the City speech last night, the city has walked the walk. We have spent the taxpayers have spent more than $250 million on facilities and amenities to enhance the value of this piece of dirt. $250 million. And the price tag is going up because we just built Greenway and we just built a first blush of Civic Center Drive. We are committed as a city, and the residents are committed as a city. And we are continuing to walk the walk. And as you mentioned, the work that was done on this draft of a master plan was done by our city. Our staff did all of the detailed work on drawings. And if I'm mistaken, please correct me, but I believe that our city staff spent their hours drafting these documents, drafting these pictures. And as I'm told, it came about in 22 meetings with our staff that occurred between the managing partner, actually you on behalf of the managing partner, Scott, but it was our staff who actually put pen to paper and did all of those pieces. It was our staff that actually we hired the consultant to look at full belled out what kind of revenue could be expected. Mm-hmm. So the city again and again and again continues to walk the walk. And we continue to try to reach out and find ways to work together. But when I reached out for almost a year asking for meetings with all of you to reconvene what started here and to do it with a few more people and start building and then start a public process, only 2 members showed up. And I don't know why that is. I really don't know why that is. I don't wish to negotiate with one outstanding partner in the media. I don't appreciate for you to stand here and say you don't know what it is, and the city of Surprise's reputation has been damaged by the things that we have done by not cooperating with you. I don't appreciate reading that Scott Phillips, Vice President of Carefree Partners and Chairman of Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce, said the council's denial of the Mattamy Home project hindered Surprise Center Development Company's ability to attract developers. And quote, "The council is unpredictable at best. An unpredictable council makes it a challenge for businesses to know what they're in for." That is inflammatory language, and I do not appreciate it. I do not think it benefits the collaborative process in any way, shape, or form. There's
I'm happy to
also
respond to that if you'd like,
there's also information that was fed to the reporter that is inaccurate. And I quote, "The city agreed to settle after Maricopa County Superior Court judge sided with the landowners." That is false.
Mayor, I don't control what's written. And you're indicting me for saying things that are true, that have happened, that the development community watches, that we are in that culture every day. Now, not to say we can't do deals, and not to say that we can't create new wins, but if I'm not going to lie to the degree that there are challenges here. And I think Mr. Winters admitted it. This is a quagmire. What are we dealing with here? How do we get some consistency? How do we work through a process that we work collaboratively, truly collaboratively, and work through a process that recognizes the land use rights that already exist, that recognize that the market has specific needs that need to be met. So, Mayor, we've talked about it. You were in our office. We talked about a multifamily deal that we'd like to do. They have certain needs based upon their project. If you want to wait until the perfect thing comes along, we're going to be waiting on a very large piece of land for a long time.
Mr.
It's
Phillips,
time to get things going.
Mr. Phillips, you were in attendance of the meeting on the 5th. And we committed, did we not, that we would continue to collaboratively review those projects. But I cannot direct the business of SCDC. These members of the council cannot direct the business of SCDC. It is up to the 3 partners to decide what is an appropriate use. This is not our land. This is your land.
Correct.
This is not our master plan. It is your master plan. But our taxpayers have invested $250 million outright, just in the hard investments. If you start adding up staff time that our staff has done to try to put things on paper that have been negotiated between you and our staff outside of the view of the public and certainly the council, there's another dollar figure you could plan on that. I mean, we want to work together and we want to review these projects. But your own projects, when they come to us, they're asking, where's the master plan? They're saying, can you put some heat on your partner at SCDC and get us a master plan? Your partners have asked specifically for that. In fact, your partners at Mattamy Homes put a lot of heat on all of us in a tour of their facility in Chandler to get a master plan. They wanted to know what a master plan was going to look like. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it's not our master plan, it's your master plan. So I have a question to you, other 2 partners. Have you ever adopted a master plan to send out to the public? Has there ever been an adopted master plan to be sent out to the public?
I'm not aware that we've sent it out to the public, Your Honor, but we've been operating under that 2012 discussion and then doing one-off approvals based on whatever's come forward since then. But doing that, those one-off approvals, fully believing that that's something the city finds favor with and sees it as consistent with the vision. I mean, I think what we really are missing in a lot of this discussion today is where's the vision for the future of the downtown of Surprise? How does that vision for the future of the downtown fit into the overall vision of the future of the entire city? Because this is a big city. It's not just this land around here. So how do they connect? How are we going to brand, that vision? And then how do we message it, do the messaging, and make sure that we share the messaging with each other? Because essentially, you're a partner with a small p in our undertaking here. We committed to work together. And so how do we message it collaboratively together so that when these market folks come to us, they're not begging and saying, what's going on? We are all telling the story the same way, and it's a great story to tell. So that's why we committed with you on the 5th to get that job done. We think it's absolutely necessary. And I also say that Scott talked about a divided house. Between two of the members and our relationship with the city, we don't see a divided house. We are very committed to the city. We're here. That's why we're spending our time to be here to say we're here to do whatever it takes to make sure this happens. I would also say, though, to remind you that the decisions made out of SCDC come from the three partners, not from when Scott said, "This is my vision." Is that that's great. I mean, Scott can do that all he wants. He's got a lot of great experience, but just keep in mind that may not be the decision of the partners. And so having these direct meetings with the partners is absolutely necessary. And then I'll just close because that press article is very troubling to me. So I personally, Sun Health, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of Bob, we apologize for any comments in the press. And we do not support that, sanction that, condone that. We've actually had many discussions in our member meetings, no talking to the press at all unless it is brought forth to the members and we sanction whatever that goes out. So when you see stuff like that in there, you feel free to call us because we have said over and over again, that's inappropriate because we don't want to do anything that inflames not only you as council members, the leaders of the city, but any staff here, as well as the public. The public reads this stuff. We do not want to get crossways with the citizens of Surprise because they are the investors behind all of this.
Thank you for that. And as for a divided house, I can say that a divided house would not have landed Ottawa University. A divided house would not have been an award winner as an economic development engine of the West Valley, a continuous economic development engine in the West Valley. We have one of the top economic development departments in all of the state of Arizona. We have an economic development engine in our Texcelerator that is recognized around the world. So this is not just small, some little hick town. This is a town that is very sophisticated and very successful and doing more and more every day to bring to the vision of the citizens that they've been dreaming of for a long time and that they've been investing in for a long time. So now we are focused on this piece, this master plan, and we all agreed. We had a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the council, full joint meeting. I believe you, Mr. LaRue, were there. I believe Mr. McKee was watching online, could not fly in for that. And I believe that you, Scott, were there on behalf of Carefree Partners. There was public testimony. And the public was very excited about having the opportunity to start talking about things that they would like to see. It was an opportunity to share their thoughts with the entire council and the entire Planning Commission. And yet, the managing partner was not there, and I recognize it was because of a health issue. We want to do it again. We would like to open that process into joint meetings of the Planning and Zoning Committee with the council. But there's a lot of preliminary work that has to get done because I can tell you, it's not easy to schedule a joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the council. It is not easy at all. And there are also open meeting law issues that we have to be very cognizant of whenever you're doing so. So again, when we're reviewing what's important to the future, we want to make certain that we are working collaboratively and respectfully, and making certain that we are doing right by the taxpayers who've invested in this land. $250 million, and the thermometer is rising because it is getting more and more expensive every day. Just sit and watch that land not yield the kind of developments we know have been offered and not come to fruition. So we want to make certain that we work forward. We want to bring forward, but it's not this council's fault. It's not my staff's fault. It's not the citizens' fault. We are all in this together to make something, and we want to make you guys a boatload of money, by the way. I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing, and especially during a booming economy like we have right now. So nothing in life is free. We've invested a lot. We've invested a lot of time and a lot of energy. And as Joe alluded to earlier, building the Bell Grant interchange and getting the deed restrictions lifted was a considerable effort by the city. And it could not have been done by the partners. It was done by the city. And you asked us to do it, and we did it.
Thank you.
We wanted a university. You said, if you bring us a university, we'll collaborate on finding ways to bring land, make it available for them to grow. So all of those things were in play long before a lawsuit. And so we do appreciate, we've had good moments, and we've had moments where we're talking past each other. So I say tonight it's time to stop talking past each other and start working together. I think the three partners need to have clarity amongst themselves, and then you need to give us guidance on what you want. It's your land, but it's our taxpayers who've invested in that, so they take ownership in it as well. So with that, I'm going to move on. I see another couple of questions have sprung up, and we'll start with Councilmember Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. You kind of touched on it towards the end. Now, I'm not blaming anybody. And it seems to me everyone is ready to move forward. My question is can we do it? Like, you can feel the tension in this room. It's almost ridiculous. This should be an exciting time. You have a blank canvas to play with here. And yet all we've done was bring up old stuff. I don't care what happened before. I don't. So my question is, it's not just directed at you, Scott, or you, or anybody up here. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying, is it possible to move forward, and how do we do it? Because we're not doing any resident any good with this. I mean, this should have been a really fun meeting, and it just turned into something that wasn't. So we're not doing anybody any good. So my question is can we do it, and how do we do it? We got to let go of what happened. Just let it go. Thank you.
Amen.
Councilmember Tandy?
Thanks. I view this project and our relationship as a public-private partnership. From the formation, I think how this was formed was with the help of the public entities that were helping to put this whole deal together. I really appreciated the meeting on April 5th. I think that's a new beginning. And that's what I'd like us to treat it as. Coming out and saying, we'll put together a master plan to take this forward, I think it's huge. And we also discussed some other things, and my big want is community engagement. This is your plan, your land, but the residents are hungry for things. And if the residents are hungry for things, how much better can that master plan be by including their engagement? Because you got a ready market there. They're telling you, we're going to be patronizing this. So I'm looking forward to having a sense of place. I heard Maybe in the reality, it'll take 15 years to develop it out. But I think if we get this master plan going and we get the community engaged and in community outreach meetings, I'd like to challenge each other to try to get it done even faster. I mean, we've got a real good time frame right now where the economy looks like it's going to be good for a while. And I figure strike now. But let's not take a quick and easy deal. Let's try to challenge the master plan to be what is it we want to do so we don't have to do a tear down. We've already done some tear downs in this area. Scraped it off and rebuilt a new one. How can we challenge ourselves in developing this master plan to, this is what a long-term vision is, and put the quality in right now? I heard the discussion about, well, maybe eventually it'll be more dense. Why don't we plan the master plan more dense right now? We got the kind of an indication from the Thompson Thrift. It's a little bit more dense than some of the other projects. People are concerned about, driving through the parking lot. And I think it's because of the construction still going on, but maybe even more dense than that. So I think as you develop the master plan and utilize the public engagement, I think we'll all come up with some great ideas to challenge each other to make it even better for the community. And that's what I'm looking for. How do we get it done and get it done fast? The people I talk to, very hungry for a sense of place. They don't want to wait for their kindergartners to graduate college before they get it. And that's what 15 years is. And I'd like to get moving a lot faster. So thanks and good luck to new beginnings with the master plan and community outreach. Thanks.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just Scott, if you could put that plan up that you had, I just want to. That one. Okay, here's, and maybe I'm missing it, but a master plan like that has no, I don't think it has any legal binding. The site plan is what is legally binding, correct? From your standpoint?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't get accused of malpractice. So sure, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that plan as a master plan?
Councilman Hall, I don't think there's a lot that's wrong with it. I mean, I think there's some roads that on the circulation plan that Mr. Wingenroth showed, we show that go through. I think it's a fantastic framework. I think it shows general land uses. There's a lot about it that works. I think there's a lot about it that works for Ottawa. There's a lot about it that allows us to go forward with new projects. Now, is that the final say on a master plan? No, master plans are always subject to change. Right. Always, based upon what the market's doing.
That's the key. That's the key point. We can have a lot of meetings and we can have a lot of public input, but at the end of the day, the market is going to drive a lot of what gets built. And the market can be very cold. Just like you said, it can say, you know what, I don't care what you guys have done. I don't want to be here. I want to be there. And that's, we have to be sensitive. I mean, this is not a command economy. This is a market economy. Right. And although we can say we want this and want that and want this, the market's going to tell us what they're going to invest in. It's their money.
Yes.
And so I just want to point that out because it becomes circular, and I almost feel, from my standpoint, that it's a waste of time. I want public input, but I'm not sure a combined meeting of council and planning and zoning, and we talk about it. And we've been there. We've done all that. We've done all that, and let's take a look at what's there, and say, okay, how can we build within that framework, and then it'll come to planning and zoning. And to us, and we can make a decision. But right now, it's just, what are we going to do? Plan building by building by building? It's not going to work. You tried that before.
It would be my preference not to do that, yes.
I mean, because the market is going to tell us.
Yes, it always does, whether we like it or not.
Right. And so, when you had Glimpshire, that was 2006. And the market tanked in 2007 and 8 and 9 and 10. It went away.
Councilman Hall, we actually had We had another deal with Vestar in that same area with a similar size and similar scope. And again, great plan, great developer, one of the best developers in the Western United States. And it couldn't make it happen. It's the way the market goes. So we're in a constant state of transition. And I agree that a framework is helpful for identifying potentials. But we had a hospital deal that went away just because it was a micro hospital, and but they had to be on Bell Road, and we said as a group, no, we're willing to do the deal if you're down in the healthcare area, and they said, okay, well then I guess we're not going to do a deal. So those are the decisions we have to make, and sometimes that's okay.
Right.
But when it's a use we really want, we want to make sure that we figure out a way to accommodate them.
But to the mayor's point, we have no control over your partnership.
Correct.
Okay? And so it would be very helpful if you guys had one sheet of music to read off of rather than fragmented meetings and all this, so that it was unified. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I really don't. I mean, you guys had arbitration. I guess that was a decision made by the arbiter, right?
Yes, there was a decision.
So I thought from that point, maybe there would be a unified message, but I guess you guys are still fragmented.
We'd like to get there.
Okay. Yeah, we need you to get there because we can't control that. Just like we can't control the market.
Yep.
So, okay.
Thank you.
So I see no further questions. I think a lot has been said. I think the most important thing that has to be said is this council stands ready to work with all three of you. We stand ready to work with Surprise Center Development Corporation. We are so excited about the future of our city. We are so excited about what has happened already because of all the work that our people have done, our residents, our citizens, the support that we've gotten, Ottawa University. It doesn't even have to be, don't even focus on just what's happened on this site. Let's talk about the city as a whole. All of those pieces, that's what makes a city exciting. It's not just one place. And I think Surprise City Center, I think it deserves its own brand. I think it deserves its own. You have an opportunity of a lifetime here. I'm begging you not to fritter it away. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I know I sent all of the members of the council as well as members of the partnership a piece of Apple News. It was about mega developments and how the development community is hungry for parcels of land like this. And it's happening all around the world. And what I sent you was some of the most amazing things. And it's not just pretty pictures. Not just pretty pictures. These are things that are actually happening. And right now, investors are hungry. They want to get their money into something. It's been sitting off the street for a long time, and they want to get it into something, and they want to make money. So we need to capitalize on that opportunity. And when one of your businesses or one of your locates comes and asks us for your master plan, we got a problem. So we've got to make certain that we have a master plan. So I hope that you will go back. I know that there are people in the audience that wish to speak on this item, but I certainly hope that you will go back as partners, true partners, and figure out how to get on that same sheet of music so that the seven of us can make rational decisions about the future of the City of Surprises, precious downtown. We really would appreciate that. So at this time, I have public that wishes to speak.
The first person is Richard Oska.
We got to take off.
Mr. Oska, if you would please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
All the speakers come up now. I think we can take off. I'll stay on this one.
Good evening, Madam
But you
Mayor.
would speak into the microphone. There you go.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Richard Oska. I live on Valentine Street in Surprise. I moved here with my wife in 2010. We moved into Arizona in 1984, and I lived not too far from the Kierland Center. When we came here in '84, it was all desert. Bell Road didn't end, it ended at 64th Street. Scottsdale ended somewhere around the equivalent of Greenway. Greenway didn't go through. It was all desert. And I saw it grow up. And I really take exception to the gentleman that just left and the slides that he put up about the size of Kierland. He really misrepresented it. Kierland went from 64th Street to Scottsdale Road. It went from Acoma to Paradise Lane. That's 1 square mile. And then when they put up the Kierland Center Commons, that's when the economy boomed around it. That's when you saw office and huge high-rises north of there, as well as office complexes south of there. The city of Phoenix got into an argument with the city of Scottsdale about how they were routing Greenway. And they did that because they ended up wanting to bring in a lot of office complexes, which they did. During that growth, because of the amount of growth that Kierland was bringing in, that's when some investor group bought the old Dial complex directly across the street. You're nodding your head, so you're familiar with that. They tore that all down, they expanded beyond it, that became the Scottsdale Quarter. And it was all started because of the Kierland Center. The Kierland Center included the Westin Resort. That's got a golf course, and it's got a children's slide, a water slide. It's got a huge conference center. Your information, I don't know if it was intentional to misrepresent Kierland, but it really ticked me off, all right? And because of Kierland, you expanded the whole complex, both on the Scottsdale property and on the Phoenix property. And a lot of people, there's a misnomer there. The mailing address of that general area is Scottsdale, but it's really in the city of Phoenix property, city limits. And there was huge quantities of apartment complexes, condos. In fact, when they were building Kierland, they started with a condo complex that they were initially selling for less than $200,000. Now they're going for $1.7 million. Wow. So I don't know, and I don't understand why it was represented the way it was. You guys really misrepresented the facts. That's all I can say. And another thing is, we have a lot of healthcare, assisted living complexes here. If you do a head count, because my wife, we're both in our 70s, and we're starting to look at assisted living, those that include memory, Alzheimer's, that kind of stuff. Do you realize that there's in the area of 100 facilities here? And if you look at the Scottsdale area and you look at the just east of Shea, you'll see it, the same thing that's there is here. And you know what happens? Because I did this when my mother was in an assisted living thing. You fly into town, you visit your mom for a while, but in the meantime, number one, you need a hotel to stay in. Number two, you want to do some shopping. And you sure as heck don't want to shop and eat in fast food restaurants and Targets and stuff like that. No, you're looking for upscale. And I've got cousins that fly in because they've got their parents living in those assisted livings east of Shea, and actually south of Shea, I should say, on the east side of the 101. And you know what happens? They come in and they shop. and the Kierland and in the Scottsdale quarters just because they don't want to go shopping in the everyday stuff. They want to spend a little money. We ended up, between my cousins and I, whenever we visit our folks, we spend $3-4 grand in a matter of 3-4 days.
Mr. Oscar?
You know, you guys really need to look at things the right way.
Mr. Oscar, I want to thank you for your passion, and I want to warn everybody else, Mr. Oscar is full of passion. I let him kind of go over, but if you would, we have a 4-minute limit. We'll try to make sure that we cover everybody, but I think you got a lot of good comments in, so thank you, Mr. Oscar.
Mayor, could we just correct the record that that information shared was not SEDC information? I mean, we had no hand in that. That was something Scott prepared. So
Understood.
and I would apologize. SEDC is not trying to mislead anybody.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Ken Wright.
Mr. Wright?
Ken Wright, I live in District 5, not very far from the municipal complex. I aware of the city's position on this, and I used the words from another guy because he wrote it up in a more succinct manner than I did. A vibrant, modern downtown in the city center, including public spaces, along with an entertainment district, urban-style living, and professional business center. The city of the future is now. And it is now because decisions are going to be made one way or the other. Something's going to happen. It's inevitable. In my career, I had something happen that couldn't happen because the University of Michigan had decided to put a Flint, Michigan campus on some property around the community college. And that irritated the downtown district because the community college was removed from downtown. So the good mayor, he put me on a committee to advocate relocation of the campus to near downtown. And I was goofy enough to accept the position. And there were 16 or 17 of us. I was about 31 years old at the time, and the first meeting that the good old boys had about this, I felt like I was a little kid, you know, because the people were much older. But they started talking about how they had to get this moved downtown to help their business. And I raised my little hand and I said, "You're using the wrong approach." And they looked at me like, "You're crazy." So I told them that moving it downtown, helping your business, is a byproduct. It should not be sold on helping your business. It should be sold on the students would be in a more urban atmosphere where they would have a better chance to get acquainted with stuff, get jobs downtown, et cetera. And of course, when I said that, the next step was they made me the chairman of the community advocacy for to move it downtown. Yeah. So once again, open your mouth and get you in trouble. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. The two key things that were brought up tonight was collaboration and guiding principles. I don't see any conflict between the statement I read, why that can't be worked on in a collaborative manner and still meet the guiding principles. I pay close attention to those guiding principles. I believe in guiding principles. I think that the subject is out there. There should be a collaboration. The collaboration be with no acrimony, no acrimony. It's what's best for the city and how it could be integrated into what's best for the people that are going to be doing the current property owners. There's no reason it can't be done. It's just a matter that it's not being done. And I hope today's session will result in a renewal of a joint effort to, well, maybe not a renewal, but once a master plan is introduced, there should be a joint effort to say, how can we do this and still satisfy both parties? I think it can be done. It's just not being done. Do it to both parties.
Thank you.
Heck, I stole the Nike commercial.
Do it.
Next speaker is Ed Hansel.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Ed Hansel. I live in Litchfield Manor here in Surprise. I grew up, if you'll forgive me, in a little town on Lake Michigan called Chicago. The one thing about Chicago is it has perfectly square blocks. Other than, along the waterfront or Southwest Highway, which cuts across, everything is square. I first went out to California in 1955, and I saw Marin County had curved streets, and it was so pretty. I couldn't see for 6 blocks or a mile straight ahead because everything was nice and curved. Well, part of it was due to the landscape around the hills, but still, it was very shocking and beautiful to me. Now I'm looking at the plan here, and I'm seeing that I will be able to see a mile to Bullard Avenue from Litchfield. I don't want to see a mile from Bullard Avenue to Litchfield. That's not very exciting. I want to see some landscaping. I want to see some curves in the streets. That, to me, would be beautiful. As well as businesses on the ground floor, living spaces or working spaces up above. In Europe, I saw a hotel that the entrance was over here, and you went upstairs, and it went across about 7 different businesses. And, you know, it was always full. And the only problem was that the room that we stayed in happened to be right above a bar that had a very lively band. And we didn't get much sleep. But there are ways to design things that, you know, you could have a hotel and not have it look like a hotel. That's the point I'm trying to get. So please put some curves in those streets. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Donna Bronski.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Donna Bronski, City of Surprise, resident of the City of Surprise. I just had 2 little points that I wanted to add to all these great comments that people have made. And that is, the first one is just to remind everyone that when we're talking about making a plan for this property, we always talk about needing to have the customers and the rooftops. And when you look at those maps that were up, it doesn't really talk about or show all the hundreds and thousands of suburban rooftops that surround this property that provide the need and the people who want to come and have a vibrant downtown for entertainment and for working and for all the other uses that people have been talking about. We need to remember that because sometimes we get so focused on this property, we forget that it's not just this property that the customers are going to come from. It's all the many subdivisions that are all developed all around this property that have the customers and the potential workforce that are just desperate for this downtown to become vibrant and usable for all of us. The second point that I wanted to make was there's been a lot of discussion about what's a master plan, and Mr. Phillips showed a document that is a form of master plan, but I don't think anybody has really articulated yet this evening specifically that at least in my opinion, what we need is a more specific master plan, something that shows more of the character that's desired and more of the examples of uses that we want. Not that that's going to determine anything, but if you look at developments that are being marketed all over the valley, all over the world, they usually have, okay, we make fun of them, the pretty pictures, but they give an idea of what's the character that we're looking for on the property and what are the types of uses that we hope are going to come and what is the level of development that we're hoping. And I think that's what's missing on any of the master plans that were shown today, and that at least my interpretation is what I would hope that we would get as a result of a collaborative effort. Not that anything's in stone, not that it's legally binding on anyone, but it would give ideas of what we'd like to come here and would give much more specificity on the open spaces and the streets, as Mr. Phillips had mentioned over and over again, how important the streets are to a vibrant downtown. I completely agree with him. And I think we need more than what was shown tonight. We need to focus more on what some of these open spaces are. Mr. Wiggenroth had mentioned that we have some significant drainage needs for this property and they need to be figured out. Well, that's something that we could do up front to figure out some of these open spaces that would also solve some of these drainage or provide the drainage opportunities for the property. And that could inspire and encourage the uses to come around them if we design some really vibrant open spaces. So I'd like to think that that's what could come as a result of this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is my last speaker.
Last speaker. Anyone else, since you're here? All right. I want to thank everybody for their input. And I look forward, I know that we've committed that we would continue to work together and we want to work together. We would like to set up a continuation of meetings to kind of discuss how we move the ball forward on a master planning process. At our joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Council, it was a consensus that a master plan was needed. And I think more in the lines of what's been described by our residents. And I think I'm going to paraphrase a line that I used last night in my State of the City speech. When we're designing a city, we shouldn't be thinking like architects or planners or engineers. We need to be thinking like citizens. Because without that, you don't even know who your end user is. It makes it very difficult. So I'm very, very excited about the future and working together and having some guidance from SCDC as a whole and making certain that we move together hand in hand. I look forward to it. And I thank you all for coming this evening and making this, I think, this meeting gives us some momentum to move forward. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right. We have about 15 minutes for a very important second item.
And Madam Chair, the presentation takes about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And so we could do it, or we could do it at the end of if it's possible, we could do it at the end of the regular meeting. with your pleasure.
Council members, I think that would be a wise move to just take the break now and then just do this presentation at the end of the meeting. That would be great.
Thank you.
So seeing no further business before the workshop, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn the workshop.
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
Oh, my goodness.